Poppy's here. Good morning. It's a Saturday morning and we're spending it in Poppy's house. What do you think, huh? I am probably not going to have any major fans about the pie that I promised that I was going to make before Thanksgiving, and I didn't do it, the water pie. And I've got a really good excuse because, oh my goodness, the week leading up to Thanksgiving, we did that pie boot camp and I did 5 or so pies, and then I baked not only for my family, but also a bunch of other families. Over the course of a week, I made something like 40 pies, cheesecakes, cookies. I even made a bread pudding. So it was a lot of information to process in this brain, all the sugar and all the stuff. It was a lot of pies. So I decided instead we're gonna just kind of ease into the holiday season, and I'll do that water pie at the beginning of December. I still have the crust in the fridge here. It'll be fine, I promise, because I just made one and the water pie is super easy. We will make it this morning. It's Saturday. Nobody is awake in Poppy's house except for Poppy, because Poppy has a little Pico dog that decides he needs to go potty first thing in the morning at 6 a.m. So I'm here and I'm gonna make some biscuits. Now I have 2 different biscuit recipes. One of them is my main go-to biscuit recipe, and it is fine, and that is not the one I'm making this morning. One of them I make with all-purpose flour and all of the leavening ingredients that I need to actually cause that to rise. This one is a simple biscuit recipe that you can make on the fly. It's easy and it tastes good. I think the major difference, my main biscuit recipe is like ultra flaky and so good, and this biscuit recipe is more just like down home country biscuits, you know, kind of cakey and really good, and this makes a really good recipe. So we're going to get into this in just a few minutes. I just want to thank you for stopping by. We have a lot of fun together. Thank you for being part of the Pop's Place community. Thank you for liking, for subscribing, and for telling friends about this. Hit that little notification bell if you want to know every time that I upload a video, and we'll make sure that you're in on the goods. And leave me a message in the comments. Have you tried making your own biscuits? That's what I want to know. If you've ventured to do it, or if you've been successful, I want to know it, and leave me a picture. I'd love to see your biscuits and see what you do. All of us cooks, we got to stick together, make sure that we're sharing our secrets and doing what we're supposed to do. So it becomes a really good thing to share that information, to share, and that's what this community is about. Let's share, let's build up the community, and let's learn some tricks to make some really great food for the people that we care about, okay? So in just a moment, we'll come back and we'll look at our ingredients. The ingredients are simple. So, as you're looking here, we have self-rising flour. Now, my main recipe calls for 2 1/4 cups of self-rising flour, and I'm not making that many biscuits this morning. So I'm cutting it back to 1 1/2 cups of flour, because I'm gonna make 2/3 of the recipe. It calls for a cup of whole milk, but I'm cutting that back to 2/3 of a cup of milk. And actually it calls for buttermilk. I don't have buttermilk, so I've added some vinegar here. We're going to put a few teaspoons of vinegar into our 2/3 cup of milk, and that will, over 5 minutes, turn that milk into a buttermilk-like liquid. It will sour the milk, so to speak, and make it, ooh, so good. And then we have regular butter here. Now, the main recipe calls for 9 tablespoons of butter. We're only going to do 6 today because we're doing 2/3 of the recipe. So, again, for 2/3 of the recipe, it is 1 1/2 cups of flour, 2/3 of a cup of milk, 6 tablespoons of butter. If you were doing a full recipe, it would be 2 1/4 cups of flour, a full cup of milk or buttermilk, and 9 tablespoons of flour. And then we're going to create these and bake them up at 425 degrees until they're perfect golden brown. And then I'm going to slather apple butter all over them and eat them with a vengeance, because that's just how I roll. All right, so we're going to be back in just a minute and we'll start putting the biscuits together. All right, so I noticed whenever I was working before that the vinegar that I had out was white wine vinegar, and that is definitely not the direction we wanted to go with this. I'm going to get the flour off of that. You can tell I was cooking this weekend because there is flour on everything. I'm not kidding you. I'll be cleaning flour off of stuff until New Year. So what you're going to do is, normally if you're going to make a cup of buttermilk, you want to turn regular milk into buttermilk, you would add a tablespoon of vinegar and then fill the cup the rest of the way up with your whole milk. I'm not going to make a full cup, and a tablespoon is 3 teaspoons. So what I'll do is I'm going to do 2/3 of a cup. So I'm going to do 2 teaspoons of vinegar into my measuring cup. And if it's a little over, that's all right. I'll try to be as gentle as I can because this is a huge jug. Try not to do it. There we go. All right, so I've got 2 teaspoons of vinegar into this. Now I'm going to fill this the rest of the way up to 2/3 cup, and I'm reading that line on the outside. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to let this sit. I'll stir this, we'll leave it sit, and over the course of 5 minutes, the milk will sour and become like a buttermilk, so we can use that for our biscuits. I would rather have real buttermilk, but I don't mind cheating in this particular instance, and so we'll create our buttermilk, and I'll set that. Okay, so we have 1.5 cups of self-rising flour. I don't know why, but I always feel like I'm cheating on all-purpose flour when I use self-rising flour. It just feels naughty to me for some reason because I really like, leavening that flour up myself in the biscuit process, and that's the way my grandma taught me to make biscuit. This morning we going quick because we need to eat them quick. So I've put 6 tablespoons of butter into the self-rising flour. Now I would tell you there is an easier way to do this. You can do this in your food processor. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to use my dough cutter because this is not very much. It is not going to take the life out of me, but basically what you're doing is cutting the butter into your flour. So I am basically just using the dough cutter to cut these pats of butter and to work it in. And when you're done, what you want is nice coarse crumbs. Now you're going to see big chunks of butter that are going to look like this, covered in flour. That's not going to make your biscuits. You have to cut it and cut it and cut it and cut it until you get a nice coarse crumb, and you don't want any chunk of butter larger than a size of kind of like a little pea, maybe like a split pea. You want all that butter cut in there real good. And it only takes a minute or so. Now I will tell you, keep a knife handy. If you don't have a dough cutter, you can do this with a fork or another implement you have in the kitchen. I like the dough cutter because it's quicker, and that's the way I used to make pies and biscuits, and that's the way I've always done it. I like to cut my butter off of that dough cutter so that we get all of that in there, and then we just keep cutting. And it literally takes about 5 minutes to do what you need to do once you get it to a good size. And basically I just work through it just like this until I've worked that butter all the way through that self-rising flour. Not a super big deal. Okay, so I'm going to keep working this, and I'll come back and kind of show you exactly what we need it to look like when we're done. All right, so you can kind of see what we're going for here is the butter is cut into that flour. There may be a few chunks of butter in there, but for the most part, it's more like a crumbly kind of a mess. That butter is cut in real good. And now we're going to take our buttermilk, and I'm going to set that spoon aside, and we're going to add the buttermilk that we just made into the flour mixture. Now, am I going to use my hands? Yes. In the beginning of this though, I'm going to use a spoon, and then we will work it out on the counter, and I'll show you what we do next. But basically, we're going to mix this in until it's very nice. Now this is gloopy, so one of the first things I'm going to do is I got to get this to the right consistency. Some mornings are just a damp morning, and the biscuits are going to set up a little different. So biscuits and making biscuits is an art. You want the dough to be rollable and handleable, so we're going to do that by just adding the flour until it looks like it's a handleable mixture so that we can actually roll it out on the counter and make our biscuits. And it's starting to get there. We're just about there. It's still going to get a little sticky, a little bit more, and it's not a really big deal because that flour is just going to make right into those biscuits. They'll be good, I promise. And there we go. We're just about there. All right. So now we'll roll it out on the counter and make our biscuits. All right. So we got our biscuit dough out here on the counter. I have rolled this over just a few times in the flour that I had on this counter, and I'm going to tell you what you're after. This is not a heavy knead kind of a bread. You don't need to sit here and knead this for 20 minutes to make a good biscuit. As a matter of fact, the less you knead, the better. And basically the action you want to do is with your hand, flatten it out, flip the dough over on top of itself, flatten it out and give it a turn, flip it over on top of itself again, and you're going to do this maybe 10 times at the most. You want a workable dough. You want something that if you touch it, it's not going to stick to you. Definitely want some of that flour, and it'll be all over me as usual, but you want something workable. And then once you have that, what I like to do is to work it into a nice circle. Put it over on the counter with a good little bit of flour. I'll sprinkle the top with a little flour. I'll sprinkle the rolling pin with a little flour. And we're not going to go roll crazy like we did with pie crust. We're going to roll this out to where we get a nice, even little bit. You think that's too thin for a biscuit? You might think so. But the truth is, that biscuit is going to rise. This is self-rising flour. So I'm using this biscuit cutter that my grandmama got me. I'll tell you what happened. When I got married, I was so excited that we had, I bent my biscuit cutter. I was so excited that we had started our own household and that we were gonna, I guess have a little family. And my grandmama came to visit me from North Carolina. And she came and nothing doing, but I was gonna show her that I was not inept. I could make a biscuit. And I did, I made biscuits. And we had supper and she's like, son, them some cat head biscuits. I said, I don't know what that is, Grandma. And she says, okay, so we're gonna go to the store. We went to the store and she bought me this rolling pin and she bought me this biscuit cutter. That was, my goodness, 1994, I guess it was. Quite a long time ago. She bought me those and she showed me how to make biscuits the right way. And ever since then, I haven't backed down. I've made them that way ever since. Now I've picked up a few tips along the way. I tried to make life a little better for myself. I'm just gonna work what's left of that dough back into a manageable thickness and go ahead and cut as many biscuits out of this as I can. Now this again was 2/3 of my recipe, so we're not talking about, a huge recipe. Now that little bit right there, we call that one the ugly biscuit. We can probably use that and make the ugly biscuit. Ugly biscuit is that little bit of dough that's too small to cut, but you can go ahead and put it in the pan anyway, because that's just how it rolls. We'll cut it just so at least it has an edge, but it'll still be ugly. I promise you, it'll split wide open. So, and maybe a few of these will, the way I rolled them. But anyway, that's all the dough I have left over, and I have 3, 6, 9, 12, 11 biscuits here. 11 biscuits here. Now what do? We get old trusty. This is the cast iron skillet that I bought myself, because everybody in my family, we had to have a cast iron skillet. It was just a thing. So get old trusty. I have learned through the years how to take care of old trusty. You got to make sure that she is oiled up. She is a high maintenance lady, but I'm gonna tell you, ain't nothing gonna make better cornbread than old trusty. All right, so now I got 2 extra biscuits here, and I've got another cast iron skillet. I'll throw them in that, and we will throw these in a 425-degree oven, and we will make our biscuits. It only takes 20 or so minutes to bake these biscuits up. I'll keep an eye on them. When we're done, we'll come back, and that last 2 tablespoons of butter, we're gonna brush that melted butter on top of these biscuits, and they're gonna be all ready to go. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're gonna have beautiful golden brown biscuits, and I have brushed them with a little bit of melted butter, and they look amazing. And as I promised, those 2 that we barely rolled, we got a couple ugly biscuits over there, but that's okay, because ugly biscuits eat too. You got to show them ugly biscuits some love. And then some apple butter. I'm a little upset because I'm out of my homemade apple butter, but I did have that we got at a fruit stand, so I'll make do until I make a batch of apple butter. Cannot wait. All right, so we have biscuits, y'all. My throat is already clogged up just thinking about all that butter. It's gonna be going down on the other side. I'm gonna get close, y'all, because I want you to see. Now this one I already put apple butter on that one because that's the one I'm gonna taste, but I need y'all to look at the beautiful flaky layers in there. And y'all, it was 3 ingredients. I mean, how much easier can you get that? I mean, vinegar is gonna be number 4. But anyway, buttermilk, self-rising flour, and butter. And it's such an easy recipe, and you can have biscuits, and it only takes about 20-25 minutes to pull it together because you mix your stuff, you throw it in the oven, it bakes for 20-25 minutes. It's so great. Tonight, I'm just gonna be honest with you, I was gonna make chicken and dumplings tonight on video because that's what my soul was craving. And I have the chicken, it's been in the fridge thawing out because I've had it in freezer over there. I've been thawing it out since last night. My daughter hit me up with, Daddy, can you please make chicken gnocchi soup? It's gnocchi in my world, but my Italian friend Sandy is very quick to tell me my pronunciation is wrong. And I know I used to sing Italian years ago. Gnocchi soup, we got it. We're gonna do the gnocchi soup. So I think tonight we're gonna do the chicken gnocchi soup. I am gonna do chicken and dumplings because I'm gonna tell you, I lived on the North Shore of New Orleans for almost 4 years. Some of the most amazing people in the world, people that I love even today, I still love. And there was a beautiful woman there, absolutely beautiful soul, beautiful heart. And she, we were brand new out of the nest. I was pastoring a church there called Sharp's Chapel, Church of God, if you can believe that. And there was a beautiful lady there and her husband, and they just adopted us. They made us their kids, took care of us. And Mama Jenkins taught me years and years and years ago how she made dumplings. And I'm not using her dumpling recipe because I feel like that would be a breach of family. I use my own homemade recipe, but she showed me the particulars of how to make dumplings, how to cook down those dumplings. And so I wanted to do that. She actually died of COVID this year, and so we lost a beautiful, beautiful soul. But I wanted to do that in honor of her, and I think I'm going to do that in a coming day whenever we have the opportunity. My youngest daughter is not a fan of chicken dumplings. She thinks they're slimy, but I think they are delightful and delicious and lovely because that's what they are. But anyway, we're gonna do chicken gnocchi tonight, and I'm gonna boil down this chicken. We're gonna just let it have a nervous breakdown in that pot, let it fall off the bone. It's gonna be amazing, amazing. So, okay, but we hear about biscuits right now. Cause biscuits, okay, here we go. I'm here. Are you in this? I got apple butter on my shirt, and I don't even care. Y'all, look how beautiful, golden brown, full of that apple butter. Oh my goodness, y'all. The only thing that could make this better, if I had a little piece of country ham to go on one of these, that would be amazing. That would be the biscuit, but I didn't have that. All I have is apple butter, maybe some jelly or something like that. We're gonna do that today. I do biscuits for a lot of things. I will do biscuits and tomato gravy. I will do biscuits and sausage gravy. I use biscuit tops on top of a chicken pot pie sometimes. Not gonna do that this week, but definitely there's a lot of things you can do with biscuits, and they are so good. They are so good, so perfect. You wanna try this? Thank you for coming out to Pop's Place, for liking, for subscribing, and for being a part of the community. We really appreciate it. It means a whole lot to us that you've become a part of things, that you're jumping in there. Don't forget, I am at 190 subscribers right now. When I get to 250, can't see it because the camera's too high. Let's turn it down. That red pot right there, not that particular one, no. I'm gonna buy a new one and send it to someone, one of my subscribers, when I get to 250 subscribers. We have a subscriber generator that can actually run through my subscriber base and pull somebody out at random, and we're gonna give one of those ceramic coated cast iron Dutch ovens to one of the subscribers who turns out to be the winner. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I hope you're going to be part of it. Thanks for coming out. Subscribe, like, leave me a comment, and let me know, do you make biscuits? If So how do you make your biscuits? Maybe you would like to share some of that with me, because you know how Poppy is. Poppy likes a good secret. It will make me happy. You know what I mean? Okay, so I gotta put apple butter on this other biscuit here because it's sexy. And then I'm gonna eat it, and I will talk to you next time.